talking about today?
So I would like to discuss non-violent communication.
So what is communication with violence?
Saying hello and then slapping somebody in the face.
Well, then I have been practicing nonviolent communication for the whole of my life, apparently. I love it because it feels like it's battle tested to me. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's like, oh, you should do this with your partner. But, like, I don't know, this has been through the KKK, so it feels like it's got some teeth to it.
It's been out there in the streets.
So what you're saying is one member of the partnership is inconsiderate about the toilet seat. And what happens is that we listen with two sets of ears. We've got those ears where we hear what people say, and then we've got those ears where we figure out what people mean.
I'm just thinking about slapping people. No.
I choose violence.
I think you need to learn something about yourself.
Yeah.
Let me tell something to you that you don't know about yourself.
Artlist.io.
Hello. And welcome to Rainbow Dreamcatcher, the Love Podcast. My name is Nilla. I am a marriage and family therapist and licensed relationship coach. I travel the world helping people to learn the skills they need to have happy and healthy relationships.
And I'm Big Sexy, her loving husband and co-host, here to provide levity.
Levity. That's the jokes. That's the funny part, y'all.
Yeah.
I have to explain it to myself every week.
Right.
What are we talking about today?
So I would like to discuss non-violent communication.
Well, that is such an interesting topic. I love non-violent communication. I mainly like the name. Like, I don't know what it conjures up for you, but like for me, it conjures up some interesting images. I wonder for our listeners what they think of, if they haven't heard of it before, what we mean when we say non-violent communication. What would you guess? Like, I don't know. Do you know anything about it?
Well, I understand nonviolent communication as communication without violence.
Well, that's pretty much what the words mean.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So,
let me ask you a reverse question then. What is communication with violence?
Saying hello and then slapping somebody in the face.
Well, then I have been practicing nonviolent communication for the whole of my life, apparently.
I think also nonviolent communication is, peaceful words. There's no violence in your words and in your actions. Nothing. You're not saying anything designed to hurt somebody. Yes, also, don't say something and then kick them in the bing bing. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's definitely about not hurting people. I mean, I think that's kind of like just a general, if I'm going to communicate with somebody, I probably don't want to be violent with them. But violence happens in a lot of different ways. And I actually find that when we're talking about nonviolent communication, it's really about how to communicate with people without feeling attacked or feeling like I'm attacking somebody.
Okay.
I think that a lot of times, particularly for partners, and this has been true in our relationship too, there can be really sensitive subjects that, whether they are big subjects or small subjects, cause defensiveness. And defensiveness is a feeling of being attacked, like I'm being criticized, I'm being attacked, right?
Right.
And that can be a real challenge for partners who are trying to figure out difficult things that are happening in their lives where they have to have difficult conversations. And so nonviolent communication is a way to have those difficult conversations and minimize defensiveness for both people, which is a really key skill, I think, in being able to have a good and healthy relationship. It has a unique origin. You had to guess.
It has an origin, really. It's not.
It has an origin. Yeah, it actually has an origin. It started in the 1900s.
Oh, that early.
In the 1900s.
As a concept,
1900. I said
No, no,
hundred.
no, no. I know. I mean that early. I mean that late is what I'm trying to say. Not that
Yeah,
early.
actually, it's been around since probably the 50s and 60s. I really have to look it up uh, more specifically, but it is a technique that was developed during the civil rights era. And it was actually developed to be able to allow people who were coming from wildly divergent emotional spaces to be able to have non-defensive communication around important issues. That's where it starts,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So I love it because, like, I don't know, it feels like it's battle tested to me. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's like, oh, you should do this with your partner, and oh, you should do that with your partner. But like, I don't know, this been through the KKK, so it feels like it's got some teeth to it, you know.
Right. It's been
But it's
out
really
there in the
it's
streets.
yeah, you know, it's simple, but it's really hard, which is like everything we do in terms of relationships. I'm gonna turn up the volume just a little bit. In terms of everything we do in relationships, a lot of the things that make things better are simple, but they're hard, right? Just like if I want to lose weight, it's simple. Fewer calories, more exercise, and yet it is so hard to do. I think about that with communication with couples. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. I get it just fine. Huh?
Okay, cool. So yeah, so there are actually four parts to nonviolent communication. But before we get to the four parts, there's actually just like this one kind of basic general principle. And that principle is just kindness,
Just be
right?
kind.
Well, it's the underlying principle. So it requires, it's not just be kind, right? Like that's kind of
Oh,
like a, yeah, just be kind. It actually requires a reorientation of the way that I am approaching the communication, right? If I'm approaching the communication with kindness, then I'm not trying to shove a point down somebody's throat. I'm not
okay.
trying
Or
to,
shoving, which is a violent act. Hmm.
or any shoving, right? I am not trying to tell someone how wrong they are, right? I'm not trying to shift how they feel about the particular thing. I'm trying to communicate with kindness what is happening for me about that particular thing and what's true, right? That can be kind of clunky at first, but I think when you get the pattern down, it can be really helpful to avoid what I call non starter arguments, right? Non
How do you
starter
mean?
arguments are those arguments that it starts out as something meaningful, like I really have something I want to talk to you about, but instead we devolve to talking about things that don't matter, right?
Oh, careful. I
In the
think you
long
moved your
run.
microphone into your hair. Okay.
Yeah. So instead of talking about the thing of substance that I came to talk to this person about, I instead am talking about their defensiveness, we're quibbling about details that really do not matter. I didn't do that on Tuesday. I did that on Thursday, right? And then suddenly we're off to the weeds where we're arguing about whether it's Tuesday or Thursday. And suddenly the thing that was important has been completely left to the side. We never get to that because we're dealing with all these side quests, right?
Right.
That pop up because someone is defensive, right? And defensiveness, by the way, it's just a regular response, right? It's a response to criticism. It's a response to it's a to feeling hurt. It's a response to fear about my connection with the other person, um, and it's very natural, and we all do it, right?
Right.
And we all do
Every
it
single one
without
of
even
us.
really thinking about it, you know. Um, So yeah, it's a way to avoid a lot of non-starter arguments, or I also call them petty arguments, right? Those
Right.
arguments where we just fought for a half an hour, we didn't talk about anything of substance. I'm upset, you're upset, and nobody really even got anything resolved,
Right.
right?
Right. It's
And the
some
thing that we
arguments
were
about
supposed to talk
nothing.
about.
Well,
Yeah,
by
arguments
quote
about
unquote
nothing.
nothing. Right.
Yeah. And they're derailing, and what ends up happening is that people decide that fighting is non-productive, and so they don't do it, right? So when they have a disagreement where they genuinely need to disagree, and there are times when you will need to disagree with your partner, they will not have the skills necessary to disagree with their partner without anger and defensiveness. And then it's like, oh, I got to go into this fight, right? If I
Right.
want to get something done, I got to go into this fight. And nobody wants to feel like in order to get something done in their relationship, they got to go into a fight, right? So,
Yeah, you should be able to have, what do they call it? Nonviolent communication.
nonviolent communication. So, let's start with how couples typically walk through this, right? We kind of walk through it a little bit, so we don't have to go too deep into it. But like, what do you think is a common, simple request that goes haywire? Like, I got a million of them, but I talk to people all day. Regular dude, what's something that you think happens in relationships pretty frequently as an
Oh, I
argument?
mean, I got things to pull from. Let's do it a classic one. Let's
Yeah.
go with the toilet seat.
Okay, what's that?
Up or down? The
Okay,
toilet
so
seat, up or
oh,
down?
okay. So what
Compare
you're
that
saying
to.
is, I got it. So what you're saying is one member of the partnership is inconsiderate about the toilet seat.
No, I'm saying
That's
that
what we're doing?
one member of the partnership is attempting to dictate the nature of an inanimate object.
What are they trying to change it into?
No, they're trying to change it into something bigger than it needs to be.
Oh, you mean thoughtfulness. Okay. All right. So this is how it starts, right? Because you notice the first thing that I did was offer you judgment and criticism,
Right.
right? The first thing I did was talk about how not that the toilet seat is up or down, but that it is indicative of your lack of care and concern for your partner. And that if you are to continue in this behavior, and I didn't have to say all this, if you are continuing this behavior, well, you kind of like a bad built, butch body, like you're not cool. And I didn't have to say the
Right.
words, right? You got it. You heard it. Right.
Right. It
So
did
that's how
have
that
the
typically
bad
happens.
built energy.
It had a bad built butch body energy, right?
Right.
So, but that's the thing. And what happens is that we listen with two sets of ears, right? We've got those ears where we hear what people say, and then we've got those ears where we figure out what people mean. And when we're listening with both, but we're responding to what people mean, right?
Right.
So the first thing I got to recognize is that when I approach things that way, I am approaching things with criticism. And criticism is always going to engender defensiveness. Always. Anytime you tell me I'm wrong, the first thing I'm going to do is give you evidence that I am absolutely not wrong. And that's
Right.
not a me thing.
That's an everybody thing.
I had to search myself to make sure. That's not a me thing, right? That's an everybody thing, right? So how do I avoid criticism when I really do think that my partner's doing something wrong or doing something that is, detrimental to the relationship or not considerate, right? How do I go about that? Well, the first thing is that I get rid of all of my judgmental language and I get very, very specific, right? This is the place where it's really important that we don't make actions into character traits. So, not putting the toilet seat down is an action. Now, is it one of your character traits that you are thoughtless? I'd say no. Searching again. I'd say no. Right? But if I connect that action, right, to a specific global trait of yours, then there's no way to avoid defensiveness, right? So the first is that I have to separate the idea that this action means this particular thing. Now, it might or it might not, right? But if I
Right.
approach you in that way, I'm definitely going to get defensiveness, whether it does or not. So what do I do instead? Instead, I remove all judgmental language. And this is a super important part. It's really hard for people to do. So I'm going to give it to you. You think it's inconsiderate that people keep the toilet seat up, for example. How would you state something about that without judgmental language?
uh, it would be helpful to me if you kept the toilet seat down.
Nope,
No?
nope. Here's why. So what you did was just jump directly to a request,
Oh, okay.
which
Oh,
seems like that would avoid accusation, except that buried within your request, right, is the idea that I have to change something that I'm doing, right? And generally, that I have to change something that I'm doing that's not accurate, that's not right, right? That would be helpful
okay.
to you. And like, I don't know, what if I don't care if it's helpful to you, or if I don't think it's helpful to you? Let's say that I hear that request and it doesn't, I mean, it might be a little bit of help. I mean, how much help do you need? It's like 2 seconds.
Okay.
So how helpful would that be? Why is that even helpful to you? Like, I
That
don't
you
avoid
asking me?
defensiveness. now I'm just confused. I don't even know why. Why would that be helpful? Like, that's not even a request I can deal with. So the first thing I want to do, the first thing I really want to do, honestly, is I want to just state a set of facts that we can both agree on. Super
Okay.
simple. Set of facts we can both agree on. And that is, I got up to use the restroom last night. It was dark. I couldn't see. I didn't want to turn on the light because I wanted to go back to sleep immediately. I sat down in the toilet and you had left the toilet seat up. It splashed my butt. It was very uncomfortable. Anything you
Right.
disagree with? Anything that I said to you that would be like, how dare she say she went to the, or how dare she say, or does that in any way sound like an accusation?
So far, no.
No, right? So great. That's step one of nonviolent communication, right?
You've
The first thing I'm
stated
going to do
facts.
is just state the facts. And I'm going to remove all judgmental language. Now, if you notice when you check in to yourself, when I before was telling you about that inconsiderate space around like whether you lifted the toilet seat or not, I'm sure that felt different in your body than when I just described what happened to me when I went to the bathroom, right?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, so different energy. I didn't get the same energy back from you when I was describing that, right?
Right.
The next step is to own my feelings about it. Now, this is tricky because in our language, we have a lot of feeling words that involve other people. And they're fake feeling words, right? Because our feelings are internal, they don't involve other people,
Right.
right? So things like, I feel, how might you feel if you sat down in some cold toilet water at 3 o'clock in the morning because the toilet seat was up? How would you feel?
Confused.
I would feel confused. And what
Uh,
else?
upset.
I would be upset. What else?
Wet.
Wet, right? What else?
Uh, uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Maybe grossed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next step is to own what I feel about it and simply share with you what I feel about it. So I just told you the set of facts that are simply true. This is just something that happened, right? Next, and I have to admit, I was confused. I was grossed out. Um, it was really uncomfortable. I was wet, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to suddenly figure out how to get dry at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So those are my feelings about it. None of that is attacking you.
Right.
Like, do you feel attacked? Do you feel like put down in any way?
No.
Right.
No.
So I've expressed to you what happened. I've expressed to you how I feel. Now, typically, we would smush all that together, right? And add a request to it, right? So I went to the bathroom last night and my butt got splashed. It was so inconsiderate. I felt terrible and I want you to not do that again, right? I'm blaming you on that. So step one and
Right.
step two, we are on the right track. Step
Okay.
three is what I need from you. And it's still not the request. It's actually the need that I have as a human being that is not being met by these actions, right?
Okay.
So that need could be a need for planning, a need for consideration, a need for safety in my physical environment. Notice you're nodding. I haven't said anything so far that you have disagreed with, right?
Right. Well, yes,
Right.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying your needs are. Yes.
Right. So far, we have gotten through three parts of the communication. And they're the three important parts that I need you to communicate to you in order for us to have clear communication. Right.
Hmm.
So I've told you what happened. I've owned my feelings and shared those feelings with you. And I've told you about the human needs that are not being met as a result of these actions and why those feelings are present. Right. Now, now I'm in a position to make a request. Right. Now you can deny the request. You can decide that the request is not important to you, but at least you have an understanding that the request is not about you. Right. The
Right.
request is about what is happening for me that involves you and that I hope I'm going to get your partnership in, right? As opposed to just you're doing something wrong, fix it. I don't like it, right?
Okay.
So that's true. I don't like it. It is wrong. But but if I want to have a conversation about it, right? The only way I can have a good conversation about that is to own my own feelings and not throw that into the other person in a way that makes them defensive. That's what that's about, right?
Okay.
So then I make the request that says, can you please, when you use the restroom and you are finished with the restroom, put the toilet seat down? And that's just a straight up request. It's not a fight.
Mhm.
We ain't arguing about it. And now, like, I don't know, either you will honor my request or you will not honor my request. And that will give me information about my relationship and my needs in that relationship. Because now we're not dealing with specific instances, we're dealing with our needs as human beings.
Okay.
Nonviolent communication?
Okay. So
Yeah,
the goal for nonviolent communication is to be able to express your needs without blame or accusation.
express the facts, your feelings, and your needs in a way that allows you to make a request without defensiveness.
Okay. Well, hopefully without defensiveness. People can still get defensive
Well, people can still get defensive, but you'll notice that
without any of that. But
a couple things happen with this. And we use kind of like a silly real important and like foundational kind of thing when we talked about the toilet seat. But well, let's say people are dealing with really serious problems, right? Like, someone's not helping with childcare, for example, in
mhm.
a family or a household, something that is really foundational to how people actually operate. Um, it can be one really helpful because it gets rid of everything that we don't agree with, right? It gets us down to the essentials. So let's
Okay.
say it's about childcare, right? Or in our case, it's about dog care. So let's say I
Okay.
had a plan. I was supposed to go to the gym tomorrow morning and I need you to watch the dog.
Okay.
And I get ready for the gym tomorrow morning and I wake up and you're gone. And I don't know where you are, but like this is a serious issue for me, right? We're going to talk
Right.
about this later. The first thing we're going to do is agree on the facts. I don't get to just state them. We got to agree on them. So in that
Right.
instance, I'd say, did we agree that you were going to take care of the dog?
Right.
We didn't agree that you were going to take care of the dog. Okay, well then can we agree that I thought you were going to take care of the dog? Because
Right.
that's just the fact. But whatever it is, we want to just get to the bare essentials. You asked me to take the dog on Friday, not Tuesday. Well, okay, that's kind of material. So
Right.
what do we agree on? We agreed that we talked about you watching the dog.
Right.
If that's the only thing we agree on, then that's the only basis for our conversation, and that's where we start,
Okay.
right? So whether it's Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Thursday, or whatever, we get to the essentials, which is what happened, how I feel, what I needed, and my request.
Got it.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of hope so.
But I kind of want to play that dog thing out.
Okay,
Uh,
so let's play the dog thing out.
so we have the statement of fact. There was an agreement to watch the dog.
So let's do this because hypotheticals always have such like so many holes.
So
So
yeah, that's fine.
let's choose an argument between us. Now let's make sure that when I do this with my couples in relationship therapy and relationship coaching, I tell them it's really important that you don't choose something that is completely unimportant. Like the toilet seat, honestly, is kind of unimportant, right?
Right.
You also should not choose something that is nuclear. Right? So it shouldn't be the
Okay.
least important thing and it shouldn't be the most important thing if you want to
Got
have some good practice with this technique. So, with that
it. Okay.
as your basis, I'm going to just throw that open and you can choose whatever the topic is. So, choose something that's real to you and then we can walk through it non violently.
Hmm.
Are you only thinking
Let's.
about violence?
No, I'm just thinking about slapping people. No.
I choose
Uh,
violence.
let's
But
talk
that's what people mean
about.
when they say that. When they say I choose violence, that's what they mean. I'm not going to try to
I'm not
resolve this.
trying
I
to
choose violence.
resolve this. I choose the violent method. No,
Yeah.
no, I don't. I'm not choosing violent. I'm trying to think of scenarios or things
Mm.
that we have talked about. Let's talk. Let's go. Uh, something. I don't know if it's consequential or not, but like being late to things,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
leaving wherever we're going on time.
Okay. So
Yes,
punctuality. Right.
punctuality.
Okay. So what are the
Okay,
facts?
so walking through this, the facts. Let's use.
No, wrong. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You ain't gotta slap me right out the gate. Let me get started first before you clothesline me and I fall on the ground bleeding. Um, let's use real event. So let's go. We're going to dinner.
Going
Aha,
to dinner. Okay.
going to dinner. We agreed that we were going to dinner together.
Hmm.
Yes,
I don't know
and
what incident you're talking about, so I don't know if that's a fact.
oh, I'm
Like
thinking of
you kept talking.
when
Then I guess you settled on one, but you haven't told me what that one is. Like when it happened, what happened,
go
what are you talking about? I don't know.
Wednesday,
Okay, Wednesday.
going Wednesday event.
Okay, so we're going to an event on Wednesday. I do know the situation you're talking about. Okay,
Okay.
so yes, go on.
We the fact the event began at 8:30,
Hmm.
and we were going to leave to get to the event on time. I think those are the
At what time?
8:30.
No, what time are you planning to leave? You said leave to get there on time, and that's not
Oh,
specific. So
we're
this
going to
part is specific.
leave. We're going to leave by 7:30
Okay, by 7:30. Okay,
to make it to the event on time.
okay,
We did not leave until after 8 p.m. We were late to the event.
yes,
I think those are the facts.
okay. I don't disagree with any of those facts.
Okay.
So the next thing is I felt.
I felt anxious.
Mhm.
I felt rushed. I
I'll allow it.
felt,
Rush is not really a feeling, but it's okay.
oh, okay. How would you describe the feeling of rushed? I felt pressure
Hmm.
to move faster. I felt disappointed that we were late.
Hmm. Any other
I think
feelings?
I think those I felt as far as for those aspects, no, I felt those are what those actions caused me to feel.
Right. Now, this one's going to be a little bit tricky because you don't have the list of needs in front of you. Um, and needs are the next step. And needs
Okay,
are kind of universal. I'm going to try to give you a set of needs to maybe think about.
okay,
The way the wheel works is think about vitality as the center. And we need things as human beings that are just universal. We
okay,
need support. We need community. We need care. We need play. We need work. We need purpose. We need understanding. We need like, let's assume I needed cooperation. Would that be
Okay.
fair?
Yes.
I needed cooperation. So what is your request?
My request would be, can you make a future request, right? You need an action that would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
So
request. What would I like to
yeah,
have
yeah.
happen?
I would so it'd be helpful, or I would like to have you be ready to go at the agreed upon time. How's
Request
that?
denied.
Okay, but the request has been out there, and now I have information towards the relationship.
Yes, and about what I can expect or not expect from this relationship, right?
Right,
But again, it's not necessarily about how I resolve this thing in my favor, even though that in a lot of cases ends up being the case, right? It's about how I share in a way that is kind, supportive, and non defensive, that allows me to share vital information for my partner,
okay,
right?
right,
Now, the other thing that I will put out there for folks, it's a great method of communication. It is not a magic pill,
right.
right?
No,
I'm not going to use these magic words and suddenly it's just like, oh, you know what? I know how I'm going to change this. Let me nonviolent communication is, bam, solved, right?
right,
So the other part of this is that, like, I don't know, there's maybe some understanding that, and at least for me as a relationship therapist, I probably shouldn't say this, but we can never get to perfect. We can only get to good enough, right? We can only get to
right,
better. And this is the way to get to better. So while, it might not actually result in something like, I don't know, my wife is going to be ready on time, or my partner is going to protect my buttocks at 3 o'clock in the morning and put down the toilet seat, we can communicate about it without
right,
anger, right? Without defensiveness, without the negative emotions clouding the ability to be able to communicate what's important to you about what is happening in your experience with the relationship.
right. Okay,
Doesn't mean it's going to solve it. It does mean it's hopefully going to lead to fewer arguments, right?
right,
Greater communication. And, part of this too is the other side of that is not just what I say, but how I listen. That's also part of that kind part, right? That I
right.
have to be willing to listen to and take influence from my partner about their experience of the world. Otherwise, I don't know, if my partner's going to be like, I don't care, whatever, screw you. Well, that might tell you
Well,
something about your relationship,
yeah,
So,
that'll break that down for you, and they have a clear
absolutely.
understanding. And
Yeah.
then you might stop somebody. No, I'm just kidding.
You might get violent. Don't get violent
You
in your
might
relationship,
don't get
guys. Don't
violent.
get
Don't
violent,
get violent.
please.
Don't get
That's
violent.
the worst thing you can do in a relationship. Don't ever
Yeah.
get violent. But yeah, and that probably is going to lead us to our next topic, which is going to be dropping in a couple of weeks. And that topic is going to be, how do you know you're in a toxic relationship? One of the ways is that, I don't know, maybe your relationship doesn't improve. Maybe your partner doesn't really care. We'll have
Right.
to get into that at a
Maybe
different
there's
on a different.
constant violent communication that.
Well, relationships don't do well over the long term when there is a pattern of defensiveness.
Right.
That tends to, if it doesn't get addressed, that tends to settle in, and that tends to make long-term partnership not impossible, because people can be unhappy for a very, very long time. That's been my experience. They can live their whole lives in unhappy relationships,
Right.
um, if they choose to, right? Um, but it is helpful, right, to know that I have a partner that is caring, kind, wants to be supportive and connective, right? And if I don't have that partner, it doesn't matter how much I use nonviolent communication, right?
Right.
The other part of this is I have to be dealing with somebody who is engaging with me in good faith. If they're not engaging with me in good faith, then going about this in good faith is not going to help that either.
It's really not going to get. You can't. It's communication, so it has to go both ways. Yeah, you can't. Nonviolent communication is going in one direction, and it's not being reciprocated or accepted. Then that's a moot point.
Yeah, it's a way of life that both people have to adopt. One, because it's a way of life that says, I will make a conscious effort not to blame, accuse, and criticize my partner.
Right.
It's tough. Because, like, I don't know, sometimes we get to a point where we think, like, it's really time for me to criticize you. I think what's really necessary here is some good old-fashioned critique.
But, I think you need to learn something about yourself.
Yeah.
Let me tell something to you that you don't know about yourself.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah. Sometimes that's true. That's really one of the benefits of being in partnered relationship is that sometimes our partners will have a perspective that we will not have, and it's important for them to have a way to communicate that.
Yeah, and important to be able to communicate that non-violently.
Non-violently.
If you also have a question for Rainbow Dreamcatcher the Love podcast, you can hit us up on our social medias. You can swing on over to Instagram and hit us up at Rainbow Dreamcatcher the Love pod. You can send us a message there. You can slide into our DMs. You can throw a question there. You can also swing on over to our email account, which is rainbowdreamcatchertlp at gmail.com. We appreciate that. And if you, yes, you with the rainbow hair.
Yeah, I mentioned before, and I guess I maybe kind of slid it in there, but we are actually going to be changing the schedule. We have taken some time to stop and reevaluate. Want to make sure that we are bringing you quality content as high quality as we possibly can. And I think we've come to the determination that being able to produce this show every 2 weeks is going to provide us a much better and easier ability to be able to support this show, to be able to give good content, to do the research necessary, to make sure you guys have the resources available to you if you want to follow up on your own. And so we're going to move from a weekly schedule to a bi-weekly schedule. And I'm excited about what that means for how we'll be able to move forward with this show.
And we'll be sure to drop, trailers and information about upcoming episodes so you'll know when that is happening and you can prepare accordingly. If you also want to throw some Rainbow Dreamcatcher merch on and show your support of the podcast, you can swing on over to Where is Big Sexy, and it's where like they're putting on clothes. There's Rainbow Dreamcatcher merch there. Soon we will have our own Rainbow Dreamcatcher merch store. If you'd love to hit us up on the social medias and come up with a fun, cute name for our merch store, we'll put that together.
And it will be full of rainbows, guys. Just know.
It'll be full of rainbows because we all love you, all of our colorful humans. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate y'all. And without any further ado, this has been Rainbow
Dreamcatcher.
Bye, y'all. Bye.